A 60-meter tunnel, makeshift supports, and wall reinforcements. The entrance and exit hidden in a dense forest. It was supposed to be a perfect plan. The border guards noticed the movement thanks to thermal imaging cameras and sensors. The scale of the migrant smuggling operation was enormous. At the moment, we have apprehended over 130 people. The search for the rest is ongoing. In addition to the border guards, police officers and soldiers are involved in the search, and we are also using service dogs. As the officers emphasize, the tunnel was certainly built with the knowledge and support of the Belarusians. Such a professional tunnel required the use of many tools. These tools had to be supplied by someone. In addition, no one can be in the border zone on the Belarusian side without the knowledge and consent of the Belarusian services. So the Belarusian services were certainly involved in this process. In recent weeks, the number of attempts to cross the border has decreased, but this does not mean that Minsk or Moscow have ended their hybrid war. On the contrary, as experts point out, such activities will be increasingly well coordinated and will go much further than just smuggling illegal immigrants into Poland. The Soviets perfected the art of provocation, and Vladimir Putin is a former KGB officer, then head of the FSB, Prime Minister and President. He comes from a system of services that rely on provocation, so these provocations at the border will take place. There will be incidents involving airspace violations, and there may also be further attempts at sabotage, diversion, etc. This makes it all the more difficult to explain Brussels' decision, which will require Poland to prove annually that it is facing migration pressure, whether legal from Ukraine or as part of Lukashenko and Putin's hybrid operation. The Polish government boasts that we will not accept any illegal migrants. But according to the opposition, this solution is a temporary measure for political purposes. From the very beginning of this government, I think it was in December, I had the consent to the Immigration Pact and the possibility to ask every year not to be allocated this quota. This is really an achievement, first of all, undoubtedly related to the 2027 elections, but above all, it is very small and at the same time somewhat humiliating. We constantly have to ask for consideration of the fact that we are, as it were, on the front line, that we have accepted over 1 million Ukrainians, and that we are the subject of constant attacks on our border. What's more, the government's narrative itself does not match the facts, as can be seen on the western border. We have soldiers on the border. One of these soldiers was tragically killed when he was struck with a makeshift spear. Soldiers are being injured, pelted with stones, and so on, and they are guarding this border, risking their lives and health. And on the other hand, we have information that a group of migrants may be transported to Poland from the west, and it is even possible that this is being done by the German services, or as part of some migrant arrangements. So on the one hand, soldiers are guarding the eastern border, and from the west and south, it may turn out that in accordance with the law, a group of illegal migrants will be brought to us and distributed within the framework of European quotas. If the war in Ukraine ends, Brussels may decide that Poland is no longer under migration pressure, even if the border with Belarus continues to be attacked. Then, given the effectiveness of EU bureaucrats in combating migration from Africa, the countries of southern Europe will certainly call for the solidarity mechanism. One day, many meetings with the Latvian president, Poles living in Latvia, and Polish soldiers stationed there. Polish President Karol Nawrocki visited our ally in the European Union and NATO. And the Polish embassy in Latvia sent a dirty car to Riga airport to drive President Nawrocki to all these meetings and then back to the airport. This diplomacy is simply amateurish. Amateurish led largely not by ambassadors, but by heads of missions, due to the stubbornness and misguided decisions of Radosław Sikorski. And these heads of missions are unable to ensure even such a simple thing as proper logistical support for the most important people in the country. For example, ensuring that the Polish president is picked up by a clean limousine. Unfortunately, this is a disgrace for Radosław Sikorski's Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is how President Karol Nawrocki traveled to Latvia under the supervision of Radosław Sikorski's officials. And this is how the Polish president was welcomed by the American leader Donald Trump. Minister Radosław Sikorski himself does not see a problem and is trying to turn the diplomatic scandal into a bad joke. I sincerely apologize to the president for the fact that the Latvian side, using the rain as an excuse, provided the president with an uncleaned car. The head of diplomacy is trying to shift the responsibility onto the hosts for the fact that the president representing Poland drove a dirty car around Latvia, but it is his subordinates at the embassy in Riga who are responsible for the entire visit, including the transport of the most important person in the country. They blame the hosts, and of course it often happens that the host's kindness is used in some logistical matters. But then the Polish embassy is fully responsible for the entire visit and must ensure that it is carried out in a dignified and proper manner. As soon as photos of the dirty limousine appeared online, the Foreign Ministry spokesman made a bold diagnosis that the limousine had not been washed because it had been raining all day, and besides, there were allegedly no car washes along the way. But he was not so talkative when I sent him these 4 questions. Why was a dirty car provided for President Karol Nawrocki at the airport in Riga? Who was responsible for the condition of the car? Does the car belong to the Polish embassy in Latvia, or was it rented? Why did no one from the Polish embassy in Latvia, which was responsible for the entire visit, take care of the appearance of the car carrying the Polish president? Polish diplomats in Riga were asked the same questions and have remained silent so far. Similarly, they remained silent about Karol Nawrocki's visit to Latvia itself. There was no information until internet users pointed out that it would be worth at least mentioning that the president had arrived. This kind of ignorance is unbelievable in the diplomatic world. It may be malice, but it is simply so shocking that it is difficult to describe. Perhaps Radosław Sikorski's officials have more interesting things to do than represent Poland with dignity. Remember, Mr. Sikorski's colleagues at the embassies are there to go to receptions, wear tuxedos, take over residences, or send their children to British schools, not to care for the prestige of the Polish state and the President of Poland. Here the minister has a grudge against the host countries. In his opinion, ensuring respect for Poland is a task for officials from other countries, not Polish officials sent there because of their connections with Mr. Sikorski. Such a situation would be unthinkable in either America or Europe. If French President Emmanuel Macron had gone to a meeting in a dirty car, his head of diplomacy would not have found a job, even at a car wash. If French President Emmanuel Macron had been given a dirty car during a state visit to an ally, the minister would have faced serious consequences. He could even have lost his job. The fact of the matter is that President Nawrocki represents all Polish people. Visits by the president and prime minister should be treated with special care. Foreign Minister Sikorski is unnecessarily trying to explain away this unwashed car in a silly way. Minister Sikorski should simply point out to these officials that in any other situation, whether it be the prime minister, a minister, or the president, these institutions should rise to the occasion. Let us protect and build Poland's good name, and not make ourselves look ridiculous abroad. Unless the December 13th coalition wants to return to the days when Prime Minister Donald Tusk could get into a limousine when Vladimir Putin gave him the signal. Prime Minister Tusk could not get into the car that was to take him further because it was Vladimir Putin's car, and Vladimir Putin is in no hurry to get into the car. The Polish Prime Minister and his entourage waited for the Russian Prime Minister at the time and could only get into the car when Vladimir Putin graciously took off his jacket. A multi-day event designed to test drone operator skills and provide training is among the latest demonstrations of Western governments looking to enhance drone capabilities, which have been critical in the nearly 4-year-long war between Russia and Ukraine. This mission, which involved mannequins and simulated strikes, was part of the first ever U.S. Army Europe and Africa Best Drone Warfighter competition at Grafenwöhr training area in Germany, the U.S. Army's largest permanent training area overseas. The United States has been taking lessons and has said it is working to try and rapidly muster and deploy large numbers of cheap drones. The U.S. Army, the biggest branch of the U.S. military, is now aiming to buy at least 1 million drones in the next 2 to 3 years. Drones offer a unique flexibility across the battlefield.
Drones offer a unique flexibility across the battlefield to allow end users at a kind of junior level to deliver those lethal effects disconnected from force-on-force direct combat. So you can fly a drone from a kilometer or more away, keeping soldiers safe, and still result in the same effects.
The competing teams, 8 from the U.S., plus 1 each from Spain and Italy, took part in 2 events designed to test skills including identifying targets and accurately reporting them, as well as agility in flying drones and coordinating strikes.
Drones aren't going away. Drones are going to continue to evolve forward and forward, regardless of a competition like this. But what this truly does for us is share with our partners, as well as internally, our strengths and weaknesses across our forces so that we can better ourselves, as well as kind of spur that sort of dynamic reaction to these orders. It also gives a good insight to what some of these operators may see on a real battlefield, because we have a very real scenario that we're replicating here.
One of the events was the one conducted in an urban-type environment, in which teams dispatched a U.S.-made Skydio X-10 reconnaissance drone to identify a target, and then launched a first-person view FPV drone to strike within a fixed time.
We learn new stuff, new quirks of the systems every day. A lot of the kind of industry partners that we have for these drone systems are working hand in hand with us to innovate their systems based on our needs. There's a lot of back and forth between our industry partners with what we're seeing not only rotationally but real world, to kind of ask for different products that they then provide either through software or hardware upgrade.
Of the 5 teams competing in that event on Wednesday, December 10th, 3 successfully hit their target within the given time, according to a U.S. Army spokesperson. The overall winners of this week's competition, the team from Spain.